Hi everyone, my name's William Ford from AtlantaMusicCritic.com. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be in conversation with Farhad Poupel, an Iranian-born UK-based composer. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. So if you have someone you would like to nominate for inclusion in this series, please leave their name in the comments below. And finally, become a patron at www.patreon.com/AtlantaMusicCritic. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Farhad Poupel. Hey, welcome to AtlantaMusicCritic.com.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Where are you located now?
I'm in Sevenoaks in the UK, in Kent.
I see. Again, it is really good to talk with you. And I hope to have my viewers understand a little bit more about you. The way I like to begin is to hear about somebody's background, in fact, as early as possible, given that I'm a psychologist that always has interest. So tell me, where were you born?
I was born in Isfahan, Iran, the center of Iran.
Tell me about it. What was it like growing up there?
Isfahan is a very beautiful city. It's a very beautiful city. It was the capital of, especially since it was the capital of Iran during the Safavid Empire around 400 years ago, something like that. And there are many beautiful buildings there, and even some older buildings there too. Sometimes I think it's a bit more conservative to the other cities like Tehran, for example, the capital of Iran. It's much more liberal compared to Isfahan. But you get all the art that you want. Everywhere is just these kind of beautiful buildings. Yet, as I said, it is conservative. You can see that in, for example, my family. Mostly they are sort of doctors and engineers. They are not very sort of artistically oriented. Although my mom is not from Isfahan. My mom is from Tehran, but my mom is a bit more artistically sort of oriented personality. But my dad isn't that much. My dad is a pharmacist. My mom is a retired university professor. The systems for music is not developed. But for Western classical music, there are many passionate people there. There are many teachers, but the problem is that since there isn't any sort of regulated system, this society isn't that much interested, especially when I was a child. Right now, it's much different. It's a bit like amateur, if I can call it. There are so many passionate people, but they don't know how to realize their ideas. It has some good things and it has some bad things, both at the same time.
So your parents really weren't musically inclined?
My mom played the piano, and she listened to classical music, but they are not sort of professional musicians, or they are not just sort of a very low level artistically. My dad isn't very into artistic things. Yeah.
Did I understand that you're also a trained pharmacist?
Yes, I have a doctorate in general pharmacy practice. I was a part-time pharmacist when I was in Iran.
Do you work as a pharmacist in the UK?
No.
All right. Could you work as a pharmacist in the UK?
No. For the first 5 years, no, but I wouldn't.
Obviously, you developed an interest in Western art music or classical music. How did that happen?
My musical journey started when I was 8 or 9, something like that. One of our family friends actually bring us the Persian Dulcimer. I don't know if you have you seen the Hungarian Dulcimer? Persian Dulcimer is more soprano in a sense. It's more delicate.
Yes.
But it's very similar, everything. So I started learning that, but honestly, I found it too boring. And I was starting to, compose the sort of techno dance music with some software and etc. Something like that. I remember it very well. One day I listened to Beethoven Piano Sonata number 16, G major. It's a very comic piece, the first movement. And it was not a performance, actually. It was a MIDI recording. It's a very old MIDI recording, actually. The sound quality isn't that good at all. But it just hooked me. And when I listened to it, I couldn't know I didn't know what should I do. Then I told to my mom, okay, I want to learn piano. That's it. And she has a piano in her parents' house in Tehran. So we bring the piano here, and I started learning piano. I remember before I even go to my piano class, we had a keyboard, very small keyboard. I started composing with that, and I actually saved my first composition. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it is a classical rondo, actually, without me even knowing what it is. So yeah, that's how it started.
Do you remember where it was that you heard the Beethoven?
To be honest, no, it was a website, I think. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think there was a software. I don't know. It wasn't MIDI. It wasn't performance, let's say. Yeah. I remember the music, but I don't remember where it came from.
Okay. While you're living in the UK, I assume you're not making a living off of being a composer.
Right now, I am actually sort of starting to making a living by being a composer. It's just been started in a way. It is very interesting, actually. When I first came to realize that I want to learn music, it wasn't that serious for me in a way. So, and there wasn't anyone that make me change my sort of decision in life, because if I wanted to study, if I wanted to be a professional artist, it was a sort of act of revolt, actually, in the family. I was the first one, actually. So no one couldn't convince me in that sense. Also, I realized that, since my father was a pharmacist, I went to the pharmacy school. That was a very convenient way for me to earn a living and etc. Our study in Iran is 7 years. We just go straight to the doctorate. We don't have any bachelor of pharmacy or whatever. During my study years, I realized that the music is becoming more and more important, to the point that it's just the pharmaceutical studies getting in the way, actually. Then I remember I was reading an article, actually, by one of my friends, actually. He's an Iranian critic, Saeed Sharifian, and he was writing about another composer, and he was bringing examples from Iranian composers, classical composers, and one of them was from Saeed Sharifian. I was just so hooked by the music. I just immediately researched him and etc. He was living in the UK. He was British Persian. He is British Persian. And actually, his wife was British. His wife was an opera singer. He studied here in, I think, Colchester and Royal College. He was the pupil of Philip Cannon. Philip Cannon was the pupil of Vaughan Williams. So I started to research about him, and I realized that, he's coming back to Iran to have some sort of a master class type thing, something 8, sessions of classes and etc. And I went there. I just told to myself, okay, I don't know if I could be a composer or not. Let's give it a try. So I was in Isfahan. I was studying. I have to go to Tehran every week. So Isfahan to Tehran is 6 hours. So I have to go 6 hours there for a class and then 6 hours back. I went there and I told him, okay, I want to continue. And he said to me, okay, continue. We can continue. And I was studying with him privately. And I have this ritual of sort of 6 hours there and 6 hours back for 5.5 years. So I was finishing my studies. During that time, I went to my, after our studies in any medicinal profession, in Iran, we have to work 2 years in public sector. So I was 2 years head of management of the head manager of the pharmaceuticals in a hospital. But at the same time, I went to the class. gradually I realized that, okay, I'm a composer. That's it. I'm a composer. So I just settled to the part-time pharmacist and sort of being part-time composer. I composed some film music, etc. in Iran, and I did some arrangement for there is a Tehran flute choir. And except for the movies, the arrangements and one composition, they haven't been performed. But I received great prize. So I realized that, okay, my music couldn't perform here. There isn't much of an audience probably here. So, and I wanted to become full-time musician. So I thought to myself, okay, let's give it a shot. I composed a piece called Saeed Sharifian, which means Mother River. It's the central river in Isfahan, for string orchestra. I told to myself, okay, let's send it to some orchestra to see what will happen. And then I received feedbacks. It got its world premiere by an community orchestra, Los Angeles Dr. Symphony Orchestra, and received its first professional premiere by Windsor Symphony Orchestra in Canada. If I'm correct, I think 7 concerts. And it could have been performed by the Deutsche Radio Philharmonie as well, but it was canceled. So I realized that, okay, maybe there is some potential here. The Canada invited me, and I went there, and I was just getting so much prize, and it's just so different than my experience in Iran back then, when no one cares or just mocking or anything. I realized that that's it. I should start sending my pieces, and then realize that which country maybe is more receptive, and then plan, so what can I do? And I composed my Fantasia on one note. I first sent Fantasia to a UK pianist that lives in America. His artistic name is Sequoia. So he really liked it and recorded it and etc. I sent it to some pianists, and Peter Jablonski. He's a very great pianist. And they agreed to have the world premiere. I realized that my music has more receptiveness in UK and America. I honestly don't know why. I think maybe some part of it is due to the fact that I studied in a sort of UK school, if you can call it. My teacher studied there, there's a line of that too. I was very much influenced by Vaughan Williams. So maybe that's part of it. And also for the American part, aside from that, I think like most people in the world, I am especially from my childhood, I am very much influenced by American culture in general, especially through cinema. And, we hear all the American music. And actually, Jeffrey told me there is one section in the Legend of Bijan and Manijeh, which I composed for Jeffrey, that it's very much an American music, actually. It's very interesting. Anyway, so I realized that I have more connections first in the UK, then in the US. And I realized, okay, that's the place that I should go. Let's say these two, UK the first, if that's not going to happen, America. I am starting from scratch here, but not total scratch. Let's put it this way. I have some connections here, some performers who are introducing me, and I have many connections right now through my mutual friends. And also UK is very near to Europe, which you can work in Europe because I had some works in Europe, has very good relationship artistically with America. We can work with America as well. So it's just have all these benefits.
How would you describe your music? What do you think your music sounds like? Tough question, I know, because you kind of have to know other things to compare it to, but what would you say it's like?
I think if I have to shortlist the figures that it is influenced by, I think should be maybe Mussorgsky and Shostakovich, something like that, and Sibelius. And Vaughan Williams is very much influenced by Sibelius, actually. There was a person in the UK that they played some of my music there, and he called me the Persian Vaughan Williams. If I have to start with my influences is mostly, as I said, from these composers, and also cinema, all of the arts, let's say, especially cinema and film music. Persian music, even though I don't listen to it that much, I grew up with it. The Persian music was everywhere, so it is in me. And also the Persian literature. Persian literature, especially the Shahnameh, Book of the King, which I composed one of the stories for the Jeffrey Biget. As a side note, Shahnameh or Book of the King is the series of stories written by Ferdowsi. It's 53,000 verses. It took him 30 years to finish it. He started to gather the pre-Islamic stories from Iran and sort of try to, I think, although many scholars maybe would disagree with me, but I have a feeling that it actually changes them. So make it more artistic, let's say, make it more character driven, because most of these stories are very sort of mythological and symbolic and etc. This work's considered by many to be the first sort of Persian masterpiece in the Persian literature. And it is influenced throughout the history. You have, I think, you probably know the Behzad Ranjbaran's work, Persian trilogy. He teaches at Juilliard right now for many years, and he has a recording with Joan Falletta in London Symphony Orchestra. He has 3 stories from the same book. So it is a very influential book. And it is very influential to me, at least. It's just, even today, to this day, when I reading that, it's just give me chills. I'm trying to, my music to has a sense of narrative to it. Sometimes it's getting very dark. Mostly it's very expansive.
I thought that the music was dark, particularly the solo piano pieces.
Yes.
They tended to be dark, but the 2 lovers,
Bijan and Manijeh.
Yes, that was quite lovely. It was more lyrical, less dark, more neo-romantic.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, I see the connection to Vaughan Williams. It was lyrical and quite lovely. So I congratulate you on that. But one of the things that I also noticed is that the richness of the orchestration helped a lot in conveying the story. But I have to say, in none of your music, although I can't say I'm an expert in Iranian music by any means, but it didn't sound like we conventionally think Middle Eastern music sounds like, in part because you don't use traditional instruments, but in addition, it doesn't have the same improvisatory quality that a lot of Middle Eastern music has. It's really firmly rooted in Western art music.
I try to not sound exotic at all. So by exotic, I mean, usually when they say exotic music, especially Middle Eastern music, it's just augmented second, quarter tones, improvisations. I try to not do that. And also, since I have a firm belief that if you look at the history of Persia, the Western-Eastern distinction, that if we think that it's true, it doesn't apply to Iran, at least, I think. Because if you look at the history, for example, like the genetics of Iranian are most like to Italians rather than all the Middle Easterns. And also, Persia was the place that has preserved the Greek philosophy. And you can see many influences there from, but the most famous sort of mod, let's say, in Iran is Mahur, which is basically a major mod, basically major. So one of the most famous songs, one of the oldest songs that's composed in the sort of traditional manner is Morgh Sahar, which means bird of dawn. And it is in C major. Mostly it is in C major. There are some quarter tones in the middle when in the climax, but the refrain of the song is C major, and the harmony is just 1, 4, 5, 1. It's just that. So it is just completed. And so that's what also I think the difference happened in the Persian music, let's say, and Western art music happened not because of the difference in culture. I think because of that, the culture of Iran around 1,000 years ago stopped. It just didn't grow. So it's just everything just stuck, actually. You can see that, actually. Apart from some part of the culture, which would be, literature, etc., most of the culture is just stuck in the 1,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I am trying to not sound exotic. At the end, I always try to compose music that I want to listen to, let's say. It doesn't matter to me, it's Eastern, Western, Chinese, Arabic, English, French, whatever. If it's appeal to me, if I am true to myself, I would do it, just whatever.
Well, certainly none of us can really totally overcome our cultures. Yes. I mean, it's part of who we are. You're going to record Bijan with Jeffrey, or is it just a performance?
We are going to record it, but there isn't any schedule for it yet. There will be two premieres, one the world premiere, and the next day, actually, the Windsor Symphony Orchestra has two premieres of it. Then there will be another US premiere in 2024, which there will be a recording. There might be a performance in Germany and maybe UK. I'm not quite sure about them yet, but there will be a recording, definitely.
When you start to compose and you're faced with the blank page, do you already have a sense of where you're going with it?
Actually, mostly yes. Because especially if I have an ending on my mind, which for example, the Jeffrey piece, The Legend of Bijan and Manijeh, I had. And right. I don't mean a specific ending, just a sort of vague one which gives me the atmosphere of the ending, sort of say. So for example, for Jeffrey, I thought maybe compose a choral piece, very sort of soothing, tranquil choral piece based on scale and really influenced by the Renaissance counterpoint. That's it. And so it has been changed in the piece. But that was my idea that I wanted to achieve. And since I told you, actually, my music is very sort of has a sense of narrative to it. It works actually quite well because you have a goal and you want to reach that goal. Sometimes not necessarily at the ending, sometimes just a section. For example, I had a commission with Bradley Creswick and Margaret Fingerwood that will be performed in Newcastle on November 12th, the same day that I have another world premiere in the USA, Childhood Memories. For that work, I had the idea that I want to have the sense of the return that you have in Sonata 4. So I have this idea on my head and just started with it to see how can I have this idea. So forever, actually, it was interesting, even for my commission piece, because mostly people say that, oh, for a commission piece, you just have to do whatever they told you. For me, it wasn't that, actually. I always find a way to sort of incorporate what my ideas, my previous idea, what I wanted to do before, and go there. But at the same time, with all that said, it is very difficult sometimes, especially the difficulty arises, for me at least, not from lack of idea, but from so many ideas that you don't know which one you should choose. It happens because you, right now, as with experience, you get a sense that which one you should choose. But especially at the beginning, I remember I went further and just realized, oh, that was a mistake, and I should go back. And then again, and you just have to rewrite several times to get the right idea. So yeah, that's the difficult part for me, at least.
Do you carry a notebook around and jot down ideas?
Oh, no, I my memory is quite good, actually. So I haven't had the need to, but probably I will. So I should learn to. Yeah.
How do you determine that a piece is finished?
It is very difficult to say. Whenever you reach to a point, for me at least, whenever I reach to a point that I said, okay, this is done, I usually put it aside for 1 week. Don't do any music actually for 1 week. Just go out and then come back and look at it and say, oh, that should be changed. But for me, there is a feeling that, okay, this is done. And I want to listen to it again, and again. And my argument has been completed.
Do you have a favorite composer?
It is very difficult to say. I would say no, because all of them are great. Honestly, I couldn't choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I wouldn't be able to either. So, can you think of a composer who you think is overrated?
Most of the actually 1960s composers like Pierre Boulez, and I think they are mostly overrated.
I agree.
And I think Anton Webern is overrated too. Not Schoenberg and Beck. Schoenberg and Beck are very, but Anton Webern, I respect him. I don't say he is a charlatan or not, but he is overrated.
Thank you for spending this time and sharing your experience and your thoughts with us. I think you got a really great future ahead of you.
Thank you for inviting me. That was very lovely.
It was great meeting you, and congratulations on what you've done so far.
Thank you.
You take care of yourself now. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.